What happens when a child's greatest healthcare barrier is not access to services, but the absence of consistent follow through from the adults responsible for them? Hmm. Good morning and welcome to Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership that Delivers Results AM Talk Show. I'm your host, Dr. Tekemia Dorsey, and today we're having a difficult but necessary conversation. Leadership begins at home. And when it comes to children and young adults with disabilities, consistent healthcare checkups, follow up appointments, screenings, therapy participation, and medical advocacy are not optional. They are responsibilities. Today's episode: parental leadership, healthcare responsibilities, and disability advocacy, protecting children through consistent care, Agenda 2030 in action. This conversation aligns directly with SDG 3, which is good health and well being, SDG 4, quality education, SDG 10, reduced inequalities, and SDG 16, strong accountability and strong institutions and accountability. Because healthcare outcomes for children, especially children with disabilities, often depend heavily on parental involvement, parental and guardian involvement, consistency in care, follow-up participation, and advocacy and accountability. And listen, the reality is simple. Missed opportunities can become misdiagnosis. Missed follow-up appointments can become long-term setbacks. Let's begin by discussing why consistent healthcare engagement matters so much. Let's ground this in reality. A child showed developmental concerns at school. Teachers raised concerns early. Initial evaluations were scheduled, but follow up appointments were repeatedly missed. That sounds familiar and is typical. Children showed developmental concerns daily at school, oftentimes even before the students enter the educational pipeline. Teachers raise concern, but typically I found that more students raise concern than anyone else. And parents may also raise concern, so it's definitely a well-rounded approach. Initial evaluations really cannot be scheduled until a parent expresses concern in writing. But when they are scheduled, it is important not to miss those appointments or follow up medical appointments. So in this case, years later, the child struggled academically, typical. Services were delayed, even more typical. And emotional and behavioral challenges increased. Absolutely, because the issue were never addressed. The truth is, early intervention only work when adults remain engaged consistently. That's true. Because our youth today are, if they could take themselves to the doctors, get the prescriptions, get them filled and all of the above, they would need the adults. But in this case, because they are still considered minors, and even once they are no longer minors, they still need the parents involved, the parents asking the tough questions, the parents having an understanding of what's happening, and guiding them along the way because these issues or issue are concerns that will be with them for the duration of their lives, from education into the work world and into adulthood. And healthcare checkups are not one time events, they are lifelong events. So initially, the parent is the one responsible, and then there has to be a transition, a shift in leadership, care, understanding, knowledge, terminology, and practical application. And that is to the youth or young adult affected. They need to know how to do follow-ups, how to do checkups, where to go, on top of the practical application and all the above. So, getting them involved early and helping them understand what that means and what that looks like is extremely important without also overwhelming them and being there to support them. So, when we're talking about healthcare checkups not being one time events that require follow up care, that require monitoring, communication with providers, and ongoing advocacy. My college graduate and college students are home, and they live daily with what's known as the keratoconus eye disease. My daughter has been dealing with it for about 6.5 years now, and my son for a full 2.5 years. And now, annually, they have to go see a specialist to ensure that they're to maintain checkup and all of those things where their eye is concerned, and hopefully it's not progressing more to a negative than a positive. And so in their visit yesterday, my daughter's eyes were deemed stable. And that's great because it was really bad for her when she was first diagnosed back in 2020. And my son, who was diagnosed in this when both eyes in the same in 2024, he now has to go back to the specialist for his scleral lenses because he has swelling on his cornea. And his physician, his eye doctor, believes that it has to do with the tightness of the current scleral lens. And so these annual checkups are important because it is helping them to understand what impact this is having on their eyes. And because they're both deemed to wear scleral lenses for the duration of their lives, if something happens with the scleral lens or any infections or any irritations, then they must be automatically addressed. And so for my son, we have to go now back and see um, a specialist for his scleral lenses because the fit is wrong and he's had swelling on a cornea. And so when this happens, again, everything that we just talked about is important, and not just for me as a parent or guardian, but him as now the young adult that he is, because we can go to 50 million appointments, but if he doesn't do what he needs to do, they all go downhill. So it has to be a unified team approach with consistency. And this becomes even more critical for children and young adults with disability because this is the duration of their lives. This does happen to them daily. And children and young adults with disability often rely heavily on parents and guardians to schedule appointments, track medications, coordinate therapies, maintain medical documentation. It's more paperwork around here for my children than there are me. And advocate with healthcare and school systems. A teenager with a visible disability, not my children, miss multiple specialist appointments because transportation arrangements and scheduling were not prioritized consistently. It happens. No excuse, but it does happen. And as a result of this, medical progress stalled, educational support weakened, and independence became harder to maintain because there was no support, there was no follow up, there were no care instructions or what to follow. And the reality is difficult but important. Children cannot manage systems. Adults refuse to engage consistently. Even as adults, they still need guidance. They still need understanding until they get a grip and a grasp on things. And if they're under 18, they really need the parents to not be so busy, right? Because parental involvement is more than attendance. It's leadership, it's active engagement, it's awareness, it's knowledge, it's interest, all of the above. So, leadership is not limited to organizations. Parents are leaders too. And that's the part I believe society and school systems and individuals often miss. The leadership does start at home, and they're often first noticed through their parent or guardians. And healthcare at home includes following through on recommendations. Don't just get the recommendations from the physician and be like, here, it's your problem. Absolutely not. Parents need to be involved. Asking tough questions. I'm the queen of asking tough questions and not being bothered. And will keep asking until I don't get it. And then once I get it, my children will have a better understanding. Understanding what treatment plans look like. And this is direly critical. You can have a plan, you can have outcome, you can have medication, you can have follow up. You can schedule any and every appointment in the world. But if you're not understanding what that means and what has to happen in between appointments and day to day, then the treatment plan, the outcome, the long term and the short term fails. And now you got bigger problems, bigger medical expenses, and all of the above. Building relationship with providers. Absolutely. How you doing? What's going on? Can I give you a call? Do you mind? First name basis. All of that is important. Is extremely important. And not just in the healthcare world and education and any other things that your kids are involved. Building those relationships are important. And prioritize wellness during hardship. Um, yes, it's not just with the good times, it's with the bad times as well. A mother of a child recently with autism created a healthcare binder. So important. I have several of them. And in her binder, she kept appointments, therapy notes, school notes, all intertwined, and medical medications update. And because of her consistency, her care coordination improved dramatically. Why? Because it was all in one spot. She didn't have to go here and here and here and here and there and everywhere. All she had to do was to pull that binder out. And her organization advocacy changed outcomes because now it was all in one spot. I remember doing that for my oldest daughter with her IP and all of the above. And then for my children who have keratoconus eye disease and everything else that's taking place. But now, instead of having it in a binder, I have it in our cabinet in my business room at home. So they have their own folders, so they know exactly where to go to for medical information, to updates, to records, and all of the above. Organization and having those things on hand are so important. Okay, now let's talk about outreach and community accountability. Communities must also support families through outreach reminders. Yep, we have a great system through MedStar, right? Constant reminders, even though I'm not the parent. I mean, not the I'm the parent. I'm not the patient. Community health education, so important. Family support systems, even if it's one, it's whatever, that's the system, right? And disability advocacy networks, especially if your youth or young adults need support. But outreach only works when families respond and remain engaged. So true. A local clinic launched a disability outreach initiative with reminder calls, transportation support, and family follow up systems. Families who stayed engaged saw better health outcomes, more consistent therapy participation, improved developmental process, and what they realized is that outreach creates opportunity, but engagement sustains it. People can outreach and miss you all day if you're not answering the call because you think is a um, person you owe a bill to or a debt collector, or you're not trying to get that summons, or it's your ex boo boo thing by way of girlfriend babe that you don't answer. Then you are the problem. Answer the call, right? To so that the outreach is connected and you're remaining engaged. And this conversation connects directly to Agenda 2030. Agenda 2030 emphasizes leaving no one behind, but sustainable development requires family engagement, yep, health accountability, community service leadership, consistent preventative care, especially for children with disabilities, young adults transitioning into adulthood, and families navigating complex systems. And every system is complex if you're not paying attention, not engaged, not following through, not answering the calls, not making appointments, and all of the above. That's the complex part. It's the lack of involvement, right? But what we do know is that strong systems still require responsible participation. Get involved. Answer the phone. Ask the tough questions. Have an understanding why. And finally, this conversation must move from awareness into action. Let's bring this into action. Here's your leadership challenge. Schedule overdue healthcare checkups and follow up appointments. Listen, it's going into the warm months. And even if it's going into the cold months, schedule those overdue healthcare checkups and follow up appointments. Create a healthcare tracking system for your child and family. Phone, computer, smartphone, only as smart as the person who possesses it. Android, don't understand how it works, but make it work for you. And commit to stronger advocacy and consistent involvement in healthcare decisions. Don't let your youth or young adults be the ones that's responsible for everything. Don't allow them to walk in thinking it's one thing and in hindsight it's something else. Stay engaged, stay connected. Because here's the truth. Children and young adults cannot advocate alone. They cannot. And they might understand the medical impact, but then it's the social impact, then it's the workforce impact, then it's the societal impact, then it's the education beyond K-12 impact. All of these impacts go into who they are as individuals and knowing what it means in those settings, those placements. Who do they need to be in alignment with? All of those things matter. And leadership begins with the adults who choose to show up consistently, follow through responsibly, protect the long term well being of those depending on them. This is a lot to unpack, but not really, because it's things we should be doing daily. Whether you have a child K-12, a young adult in college, grad school, doesn't matter, or even for yourself. It's all about everything we talked about, but most importantly, to follow through. Be involved, be accountable, be present. If this episode challenged you, lean into the conversation. Follow Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership That Deliver Results AM Talk Show. Share one way families can improve healthcare follow through and advocacy. Tap a parent, guardian, healthcare professional, or advocate, it's early, y'all, to advocate committed to protecting children through consistent care. Because disrupting poverty also means protecting health, development, and opportunity through responsible, engaged leadership at home and in our communities. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Rewind, download, share in your network, leave your thoughts. When was the last time you scheduled your appointments or your children appointments and the follow-up and all of those great things? And until next time, have a great day. Thank you for tuning in and be blessed.